meeting of the Lake Bluff Village Board of Trustees. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Cole?
Here.
Trustee Fisher?
Here.
Trustee Freed?
Here.
Trustee Hatch?
Here.
Trustee Rappin?
Here.
Trustee Ryder?
Here.
Please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
My flag here.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on our agenda are awards and proclamation for the GFOA Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting for fiscal year 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. The Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, established the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting program in 1945 to encourage and assist state and local governments to go beyond the minimum requirements of generally accepted accounting principles to prepare annual comprehensive financial reports that evidence the spirit of transparency and full disclosure, and then to recognize individual governments that succeed in achieving that goal. The Village of Lake Bluff was awarded the Certificate of Achievement for the Excellence in Financial Reporting for its fiscal year 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. This is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting. Despite receiving this award numerous times, staff remains committed to continue working on improving the quality of financial documents and maintaining transparency. Staff is appreciative of the Village Board and Finance Committee support and guidance in these efforts. And I believe it is an award, but it also reflects on our spirit of democracy and openness and transparency in this village. And I've had the chance to talk this past weekend to other places in this country where it is not the case. And so I'm highly, highly appreciative to the staff and Bettina for getting this done. And I know this is not easy to achieve, so thank you very much. Next on our agenda is our non-agenda items and visitors. The Village President and Board of Trustees allocate 15 minutes during these items for those individuals who would like the opportunity to...
Minutes.
I did, I'm sorry.
Number four.
Number four would be the consideration of the minutes of a June 26, 2023 regular Village Board meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Are there any changes?
Nope.
Clerk, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. So now, 5, the Village President and Board of Trustees allocate 15 minutes during this item for these individuals who would like the opportunity to address the Village Board of Trustees on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each person addressing the Village Board of Trustees is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Do we have anybody online?
There are no one attending online.
And as such, we're moving forward to item number 6. That would be the Village Board sets the order of a meeting. And the Village President and Board of Trustees will entertain requests from anyone present on the order of business to be conducted during the village meeting. And I understand that item 12 might be might be next. Are there any objections to 12?
Nope.
No.
And so moving on to 12. 12 would be a second reading of an ordinance granting variations to construct a second-story addition on an existing detached garage at 618 Maple Avenue, a Lake Bluff landmark property. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. Charles and Vanessa Clark submitted a variation application for relief necessary to construct a second-story addition on their existing detached garage. Their home was recently designated a local landmark, and the HPC conducted and terminated an advisory review of the proposed work, having no concerns or issues. The applicant is seeking the following variations for a maximum accessory structure height. The existing garage meets the maximum height of 17 feet. At 20 feet, the proposed garage additions is 17.6 greater than allowed. B, maximum floor area ratio. The existing garage is 713.6 square feet, and the proposed renovation would bring it to a total of 1,573.6 square feet, meaning the detached garage would increase in size by 859 square feet, 164 square feet of which is due to the garage's heaves. The total FAR for the property is currently 17.2% greater than code allows, and with the garage addition would be 36.5 greater for an increase of 19.3%. C, minimum rear yard setback. The existing garage is 2.9 feet from the rear property line. The proposed garage addition puts the floor area for the accessory structure over 1,000 square feet, which triggers the garage to meet the principal structure setback of 18.7 feet. And D, last requirement that an accessory building be located at least 5 feet from the principal building. The existing garage is located less than 5 feet from the principal building. The house chimney is approximately 4.4 feet from the detached garage, approximately 12% less than required. While the applicant does not qualify for the village new allowance of a one-time 10% floor area bonus given to landmarked home, as it already exceeds 110% of the maximum floor area, they do qualify for the new special consideration for historic properties, which requires the PCZBA and Village Board to take into account the historical nature of landmark homes when considering variance requests. On June 21st, 2023, the PCZBA unanimously voted 6-0 to forward a favorable recommendation to the Village Board on these requests, subject to the conditions that drainage and fire code requirements are addressed during the building permit review. It was clear that the PCZBA considered the request for floor area relief valid since, per code, the floor area totals include the home and garage additions large eaves for 807 square feet. 15 letters of support have been received from nearby properties and no opposition letters were received. The Village Board approved first reading of the ordinance at its June 26 meeting. Comments on the board?
And just one more, I guess, note, since the last meeting, there's been no other comments or received by the village.
Would the homeowner and Mr. Douglas make a comment? Are willing to make a comment?
Thank you for your consideration and flexibility in this application. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any last comments?
I think the support of the neighbors and the historic nature of this property make it clear, to me anyway, that we ought to go forward and approve it.
Thank you. With no further comments, this is a roll call. Clerk?
Trustee Cole.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Freed.
Aye.
Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
And Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
Thank you. Congratulations. Next would be item 7 and the warrant report for June 27 to July 10th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve this report?
Moved.
Second.
Thank you. If I can get there. And this report would be for expenditure of village funds for payments of invoices in the amount of $361,968.53 for June 27th to July 10th, 2023. The invoice register report shows checks with a status of open or paid, all checks with a status of open or computer-generated checks for the board's final approval. Checks with a status of paid are manual checks processed. Do we have any comments? Do we have any?
I had a question about invoice reference number 74794. It's the first item. I'm curious, is this something we routinely, it's the jail cell sanitation. I don't think I've ever noticed it on a warrant report before, so I was curious if that is routine or if there was an incident that required specific hazardous cleanup.
That was a specific incident that occurred for where somebody was being detained. Yes. It is not common.
Special cleaning.
Okay.
Understood.
I mean, I can make some inferences, but,
Probably be accurate.
okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe I just want to say this wasn't a circumstance where the individual was injured. It was
No.
something else.
Something else.
Got it.
I had seen that expense and I thought it was a regular expense.
Yeah. One, we don't necessarily detain a number of
I know.
folks, and so, yeah, so that's going to be irregular to begin with.
Okay.
Are there any more remarks on this report? Thank you. Clerk, this is a roll call. Please call the roll.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Freed.
Aye.
Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
And Trustee Cole.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is our item 8, that is our village administrator's report.
This is the first meeting since the 4th of July parade, and I wanted to be, I'm certainly grateful and thankful for village staff, public safety, and public works, and everybody else who helped out to make sure, to the greatest degree possible, that it was a safe event. And I know a lot of planning went into it for a year, and I think it paid off. So thank you, Matt and your team, and Jake and David and everybody else who were a part of that. That's all I have.
Yep. And I would like to also highlight and support this comment by thanking our staff here, especially our police department and other police officers who joined your department, Matt, that made this event go as it went.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Next item is our village attorney's report.
No report tonight.
Next would be my report, and I have a very short report tonight. As you may recall, Drew and I delivered the state of the village at this past breakfast with the mayors on a Friday, June 23rd. We repeated this event along with the city of Lake Forest at the Hohensia Club this past Friday noon. So again, delivering a state of our city and finances and events to different parts of the community, the extended community.
Thanks for doing that, Regis. Village President Charlotte.
Thank you. Next is item 11, the acceptance of a correspondence. Is there a motion to approve the correspondence?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions? It's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion carries. Thank you. Next item would be item 13, a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Davies Resource Group for tree inventory and urban forest management plan services. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. The village was recently awarded an urban and community forestry grant through the Chicago Region Tree Initiatives, Morton Arboretum. The grant provides a 50% match up to $50,000 spent, a grant being a cap of $25,000, and has three main requirements. The village tree ordinance must be updated, all public trees must be inventoried, and an urban forest management plan must be developed. Grant funds can be applied toward contracted services for ongoing tree maintenance program, and also to staff hourly rates for time spent on this project. Staff is currently working with the SEC and PCCBA to update the tree ordinance and recommends hiring a Davy Resource Group to complete an inventory of all public tree and create an urban forest management plan. And I will skip the proposed costs. While professional services are exempt competitive bidding, staff did reach out to a different provider that quoted a higher unit price for the inventory component. Staff has also confirmed with a CRTI that the Davy Resource Group, Inc. proposal covers all grant requirements and expects, with known plan expenditures, that the village will receive a maximum grant contribution of $25,000, effectively covering 80% of the tree inventory, leaving the village to expend less than $12,000 from contingency funds to complete this needed work. Finally, engaging Davy Resource Group is advantageous to the village. Recently acquired Davy's Tree Keeper software program, and as part of scope of work, will have Davy's inputting data into the village's new digital tree inventory system, and then using that data to assemble an urban forest management plan. Questions on the board?
I thought it might be nice if staff would just come up and tell us about the practical use of this study and if we've ever had one before like this.
Yeah, Jake, you want to come? Generally speaking, the village has maintained a tree inventory over the years. It's just really dated, and we've been planting so many trees of late, and we've gone through the, it's a good time to update it.
I believe the last one was done in 1997. It currently resides in, it's not Excel, what's the other one?
Access.
Access, right, which only like two people know how to actually function.
Jake
But-
is one of them.
And I'm one of them, right? So if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, nobody's gonna know how to use this. But one of the other things too is besides having a legitimate inventory that's updated, currently up to date, they're gonna also provide us, based on the inventory, a management plan for the next 4 years. Where should we be planting? What should we be removing? That's gonna coincide with our current project that we have. We've just completed year one. We've got 3 more years of street tree trimming going. So, we're like in the throes of a rejuvenation of the street trees. And this is gonna help us plan out the next 4 to 5 years of what we're gonna do with open areas, what type of trees to plant based on inventory, so we don't overplant certain species, so we're not overcrowding certain areas, we're not planting the wrong trees in the wrong spots. It's just gonna give us a little bit of guidance that we currently, we can handle, but we need a little bit more, that just practically speaking.
How do they tag the trees?
Nail them in. We already have 700 and, or,
It's in them. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but in addition to that, there's also geolocating. So they'll be tracking it so they can spatially plot it out on the village's CAD software, and so we'll have that added. That's where the plan will come into a great amount of help to the villages. Right now, there is a large conversation going on about diversifying your tree inventory to the greatest degree possible to include trees that historically were non-natives because of the changing climate, and the idea that we need to be more accepting and have a much longer list of trees. And so that was one of the things the Morton will help us, the Morton Group will help us with, the Morton Arboretum, and help us get that done. I mean, the village has already started those conversations with the SEC. It'll have to go, the zoning code is where the tree ordinance rests, but the SEC has been starting that conversation, and so all this was in the works. This is part, really, that greater Leafy 500 program that the village has been talking about for a while, the idea of planting more trees on different locations on village-owned property, and so the village does control a number of other properties that I think ultimately, when this urban forest management plan is done, will be the locations where the village probably ends up focusing its native plantings. And that's one of the things the Morton Arboretum has been telling us is, like, you know, your street trees that take a lot of abuse or in harsh environments, that's where you want to have the greatest diversity of trees, and taking things from lower latitudes that are growing now and successfully, like, you know, Missouri, Kentucky, bring those up, because that's the future. So just be as hardy as you can be and resilient as you can be.
So this request is not to adopt that particular plan,
That'll be
right?
coming down the road, and that would actually probably be a staff product that will come working with the SEC to say, this is our more urban forest management plan, but the village's tree ordinance is something that this body will see. You will see that in the next 12 months, sooner probably, seeing that revisions to the tree ordinance based off comments that Morton Arboretum's already given us. But this is merely to engage Davy to go out and do the inventory and prepare the urban forest management plan.
But trees are such an important part of the character of Lake Bluff, and you guys have always been proactive about it, but this gives you a new tool to really help manage the program.
I feel like this question has been answered already, and you might have just said something about it, but is the database accessible to the public? The inventory? No.
So
No.
well, we haven't gotten that far yet, but I think it could be.
I don't see why you couldn't, like, I'm pretty sure, so the tree keeper software that we purchased, this is all gonna be, everything's gonna be put in there. If I'm not mistaken, there's a portion of it that we could probably be able to put online, it's like a read-only, right? So
I
you'd
think
be
that would
able
be
to.
kind of cool, you know?
You'd be able to click on, I think, I'm not, I can't guarantee it, but I think there is a portion of that could be read-only and that could be out there.
So I'm going to repeat myself on that one, but there is a program in a few cities, and I don't remember where it is, where cities have put their tree database online, and they have associated an email for each tree. So the email is, of
Right.
course, a number. And the point being that we're a tree city, that people care about the tree, but that program has the stated intent for people to declare their appreciation to trees. And so people embracing their trees by writing to them and publishing these online. And the point was people got to appreciate their trees more and to embrace, literally, the leafiness of the community.
Sounds like a future FOIA request, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
I just think recently I've been hearing a lot of concern about the trees at Stonebridge, and I know people in Lake Bluff care about the trees. So in fact, if they could have access to the information of how what you all are doing is healthy and,
Yeah, that would probably be more of an IT thing where I'm.
Sure. Not adding it to your plate, but if that's something that we could discuss more, because I think, transparency is key, and people are always concerned, well, what's going on? Why are there
Yeah,
people cutting
and
down trees?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So that permit in particular, so anybody could FOIA a tree removal permit and get that information if they wanted to. If they wanted to know why they were removed and how long they were dead, but the idea that those trees in particular were dead for a number of years, many of them, and that the property owner waited to remove them throughout, what we got through the litigation.
Yes.
So, which they didn't have to do, but they did at my request. So, but the idea that they were dead and diseased for a number of years, and I don't know, like 5 of them were actually laying on the ground dead.
Correct,
uprooted.
yeah.
So, so they were in poor condition. It's probably an understatement. But so that information is available. If anybody is curious, they could FOIA that.
But maybe there's something to glean from that. That is, a FOIA request is expensive from your standpoint. It affects your operations.
But that data is, the way we process those permits, they're predominantly electronic. It's actually fairly easy.
Yeah, I have a PDF of every permit application since, I don't know, I can go back pretty far.
Years. That's, we're,
So, and I do get calls from time to time, if somebody's removing a tree, hey, you know, my neighbor's taking a tree down, what's going on? And I pull it up all the time, and like, hey, this is what's up, this is when we approve the permit.
So I was gonna get to, is there a value to basically help you putting that information online so that instead of you being subjected to a FOIA, that might be research, that information is right there online, and guess what? We're proud of our tree population. Is that what would be the cost of pushing that Davies resource application to expose the read-only part of it?
yeah, we'll check that out. I mean, I think it is available, as you're saying, just like a read only.
Yeah,
But we can figure that out.
That would be good. I mean, that if it is a minimum cost to actually put this
Yeah.
out, to make that available on our website, it might be very forward-looking. Any comments on that? All right, any more questions on the board to Jake and the staff? No?
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you. It is a roll call.
Trustee Freed?
Aye.
Trustee Hatch?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Cole?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Next item is item 14, a resolution approving an update to the 2005 Affordable Housing Plan. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved?
Second.
Thank you. Over the last several months, at different committee of the whole meetings, the village board has, one, heard a presentation from representatives of the community partners for affordable housing regarding their mission and services. Number two, received an update from village attorney Peter Friedman regarding changes to the Illinois Affordable Housing Act. Number three, reviewed a draft update to the village affordable housing plan. And number four, discussed revisiting the 2007 request for proposals for the area south of Illinois Route 176, west of Sunset Terrace, east of Jawa, and north of West Sheridan Place for development as a senior living facility. As a follow-up item to item 3 above, please find attached for your consideration an updated affordable housing plan as discussed at the June 26, 2023 COW meeting. Again, the changes in the plan largely reflects a memorialization of village board approved zoning code amendments since the adoption of a 2005 plan and the Lake Forest opportunity, a chance to invest in a planned affordable senior housing cottage development in West Lake Forest to secure some enhanced level of access for Lake Bluff seniors. This will be the first update to the village's affordable housing plan since its creation almost 2 decades ago. Comments on the board? And I see no comments on the board. And that would be a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you very much.
We need to go back to my report. We do the capital update. 8A.
8A. And I understand that we might need to revisit 8A. Mr. Hervin.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, in all my congratulations, I failed to get to 8A. Jeff Hansen, the village engineer, is going to come up, and there's a presentation which I'm going to share right now. Give you where we're at with capital initiatives.
Thank you. Yeah, we are 2 months into the fiscal year, so a lot of things are still getting moving as far as the capital goes.
Yeah.
This slide we've been showing for a long time. We're going to probably revisit these numbers this fall, given how much inflation's happened in the past year and a half. Some of these numbers are getting outdated, but this is kind of showing the difference between what we think you should be invested to maintain our existing infrastructure in the state that it's in annually and what we have been budgeting in the past several years. So the storm we have addressed through the creation of the utility, streets, that number has gone up lately as well. Sanitary, sewer, and water are probably a little underfunded the way we're going currently. So this year we have 21 different, sometimes we're stretching the word capital, some of them are more studies, but 21 projects that we're working on, budgeted this fiscal year. It totals 2.7 million. You see the little scorecard on the right. So already this year, the biggest project we do every year is the street program. We're about 90% done with it. You can see the paving was done just west of Village Hall on East Center. That was done about a month ago. Left to do on that project is miscellaneous patching of some of the bad areas in town and for streets that were not resurfaced. The PED crossing by the elementary school was mostly finished last fiscal year. There's a little bit of concrete work we have to do to finish that up. We also have the numbers you see there are the budgeted numbers for each project to get to that 2.7 million. The Glen footbridge, you guys approved the bridge, I believe, the last meeting, so that is getting ordered. The abutment work will go out to bids later this month for work in the fall, and the bridge will probably come over the winter, trying to get that schedule nailed down. Miscellaneous concrete is sidewalks and a couple of street repairs we have to do. Built his only little section of concrete street on West Witchwood. And then Green Bay Road and Green Bay Road Bridge. Thursday was a good day for that. On the next slide. This has been several years we've been applying for money to reconstruct Green Bay Road. The bridge over at the south end of town, that we've secured 80% federal funding for that a few years ago. That's in progress, but the street itself, we found out on Thursday that we're in the recommended program for 3.9 million for federal fiscal year 2026. So that's quite a relief now that we have at least a schedule of when that street can get done. We know we'll have the money. That program, it is recommended at this point. It would be very strange for it to get pulled out, but it will be finalized in October following the public comment period over the summer. CMAP, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, is who we put this application in for, and it's gone through. So it was really exciting on Thursday to get that news. Construction probably in 2026 and 2027 if it needs to take 2 years. Between the bridge and the street, total project cost is about $6.5 million. 5 million of that will be federal, but $1.5 million will be local dollars.
And Jeff, the email that I asked our consultant on this about, should inflation double again?
Yeah, we should be okay because for this particular grant, all projects had to have a minimum size of $5 million. We actually kind of pushed up our estimates just to meet that. So we should be covered mostly for inflation. There is some wiggle room in the street if there are some overages that they should have some dollars available. The bridge, there's a lot more money for bridges than there is for anything else, so that would not be an issue if that went over budget. The only issue is, we do pay 20% of every extra dollar, so.
And then the plans for that, we've held at least one open house for this project and invited the neighborhood. The plans for Green Bay Road will be the goal, and I think that's how we'll bid it, is to almost replace it in kind, like it's there. We're not gonna add, 8-foot bike paths. It's gonna be kind of a neighborhood street, and that's what the residents wanted. The exceptions to that is that there were requests to have additional public crossings added along Green Bay Road to get people east to west from the terrace over to the Malman Park and downtown, and those are gonna be added. But the lighting, all that is pretty much like you see it there today.
And to the exception that you are also going to fix water mains, because we have 2 water mains below that street to Jake's dismay. And stormwater, and so all these are going to be fixed well this time. So it's a big deal
Improved.
for us.
So we can abandon the one water main. That is actually going to be all our costs because it's not an eligible item for federal. But while the street is taken down to the dirt, that's the perfect time to do that, fix that problem we created in 1988, I think it was. And then stormwater, we're actually oversizing the storm pipes underneath Green Bay Road to hold water. And we should give a little bit of relief to the East Terrace neighborhood by holding it on Green Bay Road and solving all the flooding issues. Green Bay Road is the oddest street. It floods all the time. It's the highest point in Lake Bluff, but it always floods. So it's,
And that is actually a comment we get very often in the message as a complaint to the village hall. So I'm very happy with us moving forward with CMAP to get this done. So thank you
yeah.
very much.
And the bridge has been kind of stuck with the, what do they call it?
Historic
Historical
preservation.
Preservation Society in Springfield. But now that we have funding for the whole project and the schedule, we can push them a little harder to make a decision on those steel, or probably iron trusses on the side of that bridge that we'd like to get rid of, and they would like us to keep them, so.
So, given how much time has passed since we've had that last open house, we'll invite the neighborhood back to remind them this is what the plan is. I'm sure new people have moved in and not expecting this very disruptive project happening in the next 3 years, so.
And that's a question I get a lot from people is when is that project gonna happen? And, you know, say, well, we're applying for funding, people don't, you know, they think it's never gonna happen. So this is good news to release to people and have them all know that
It's coming.
something, they can count on it.
So if you're going to take that street to the dirt, are you going to have to get cars to go through neighborhoods, or will Green Bay will be just cut out?
It will be closed. It will have to be, for instance, you can divert people down Pine Court and do, a couple blocks at a time and do a detour off Green Bay Road. But when they do the bridge, that whole, the piers stay, everything else is gone. The bridge is out for probably 4 months. So trying to work that around maybe a school schedule in the winter, that's a planning effort that now we can move forward and try to figure out what we need to do. Yes, my apologies to people living south of the bridge. That is going to be a challenge, especially with kids getting to school.
All right, thank you.
So yeah, we are getting the final documents ready for the stormwater utility. Bills are going to start going out this summer, and we're going to have the credit forms we're trying to finalize and some of the other information that's going to go on the website. The deep tunnel phase 1, that 65K is our, what was it, 16%, Drew, I think it was, of the $500 and some thousand that the county's SMC is putting into that effort. That's moving along pretty quickly now that they've got other surveys done. Miscellaneous stormwater is just small projects. We fixed a broken inlet in the industrial park last week for $5,000. Those are the kind of things that come up, and we just try to keep in that budget and fix things as they reveal themselves as problems.
And the first round of utility bills are going out this month with the stormwater fee. A big list of water.
Lonely slide here. Yeah, we have, that picture is today. The water tower is not looking so great. We're 2 to 3 years away from having to repaint the whole thing, so it'll get a washing and it'll look a little better for
Can we
interim
put
period.
Lake Bluff on that? We don't have to talk about that now, but the dog.
My brain
Lake
went there
Bluff.
too, Steve,
Yeah.
yes.
I would tell you, historically, the ABR has said less is more, right? The idea that it blends in the sky, don't draw your eye to it.
True.
That is what,
We don't need the Rosemont Rose, is that what we're saying?
if you're gonna do, I think you license and sell it for advertising and get your money's worth.
So that will happen later this summer. Path resurfacing, that path you see there right along the back of the police station will get repaved. Pavement maintenance is usually crack sealing. I'm looking at a couple other things that they put on streets maybe a year after or 2 years after you pave them that's supposed to make them last longer. The underpass handrail is a albatross on my neck for many years, but there is one person I think might give me a quote, so we're pursuing that. Birch Road, there's a culvert that's eroded that needs to be fixed. CBD Block 1, there's some money there for some planning and engineering. We had a plan, I think it was over $1 million that we applied for a grant through the state, for the ITEP grant, we did not get. So we tried to pare down the plan to make it a little more affordable if we're gonna be funding it all locally. So this is what we call Block 1 Light. The full Block 1 plan had more work in the park area and completely rebuilt that block of the street into a concrete street. So by keeping it asphalt and not changing the street geometry as much on the south side, able to shave a few $100,000 off the cost. That does expand the sidewalk about 8 feet in front of some of those restaurants. I see we're outdated here. It still says B Market. That's now Hansa. but that bumps out a little more as well, different landscaping. And then the curbless street concept that we've talked about many times still remains in this scope of work. The $750,000 would include the seat wall and festoon lights on the corner in front of Hansa Coffee. Those are like 125 to 150,000 of that money. So if we got to that point, we could always put that in or take it out. There is a little bit of a ticking clock here, as those sidewalks on the north side are pretty bad and the street is in poor shape. So we're either going to have to repave the street as is and maybe fix the sidewalks, or do more of a refresh of the whole block within the next couple of years.
Yeah, so as going into the capital element of the budgeting process will be in January, February. We'll talk about internally if we can present to you a budget, a draft budget that includes this. So we'll have to go back and revisit the rescoring of this, but this is, I know it was an initiative of importance, and the idea of finishing the downtown, you know, it's, so we'll try to make that happen if earthly possible. We talked about applying in for ITEP funds. You mentioned ITEP. That was not the grant we went through. It was a different CMAP or Decio grant. Yeah. So we will go for ITEP, but it's every other year. So we're about a year away from applying. So, so it's a test of patience and how long that what's out there will last. So weather dependent. But we will do it. So there's some patching happening early next week, and along Block 1, you'll see
Should
that
be a week
there's some
from today.
places that need to get hit in Block 1 for sure. But Jeff, did you finish this?
No, just the Ped Bridge to North Chicago.
Yeah.
We applied for a grant for that as well, which we didn't get. We're gonna go back to ITEP a year from now. That's not something that's really burning at us right now, but we did get some money very nicely from Julie Morrison, got us a grant to pay for part of that. But we need just a couple more $1 million, and we can make that happen. So we're gonna keep fishing for money to get that moving. And then the non-MFT street, that's just the design work for 2024 street project, which happens this fiscal year. So that will be sitting pending till February. Yeah, and then sanitary projects, I've got to get the televisors out to look at another section of the village, and that usually finds enough pipes that are cracked or have too many tree roots in them to line, and that will be that. There's a couple other parts where I think we know we have a break in a pipe that we can go fix, but that's all to start going here pretty soon this summer, and the lining work usually happens over winter. And then water, I don't have a pointer with me, but if you look at the little, I don't know what you call it, a 7 of water main coming off Sheridan Place between those backyards, trying to get that fixed. That's 100 years old, and that area has not broken, but that is an area that probably keeps Jake up at night. If that breaks, we have a problem because we can't really get to it. So we're developing some options. We're going to meet with the neighbors, see if there's a way to get that replaced or improved. One of the issues is there's no formal easement for that pipe, and it goes pretty close or under a couple of garages and very mature landscaping, and it's a very difficult area to work, and there's going to be private property impacts. So we're going to have to meet with those property owners and try to find a way to do that without too much impact. But it's hard because you're going to be digging in somebody's bushes and, like I said, right next to somebody's garage. So it's a challenge, but that is something we're trying to take care of this summer. And then there's a couple different options for that, and the costs vary wildly if we can use private property or not. That's a big difference. So replacement of miscellaneous hydrants and valves, that's usually what we do with any money left over in that budget. Just fix broken things, add valves that work in areas where we have valves that don't work. And then this isn't really capital, but we do need to talk about at some point the lead service replacement policy. We have just under 200 lead services in the village. They're supposed to be gone by 2042. The new state law doesn't exactly say we have to pay for them, but we've been paying for a couple of them. There's been a couple that private property owners have replaced on their own because they wanted to upgrade their service. But there should be a policy in place. It's probably another budget discussion going into the next budget cycle.
So those are 200, did you say,
A little less than 200.
over the next 20 years? So we should basically have a budget that includes at least 10 per year. This is the point.
You can take care of them faster. There's a certain percent you're supposed to get rid of every year. There is a certain amount, like 10 might be a good number, 2 is probably a bad number because there is an economy of scale. Try to do 50 a year is probably way too many because I can't get into 50 people's basements every year and do work. That's a disruptive process as well. So we're kind of feeling that out, getting a few as we can. We do have in the out years of the budget, not in the current 2 years, but the next 5, I think we had some money in there to attack that problem more quickly. But we also will see if we can find money from other sources, if there could be grants available as well.
Okay, so we should add that to our finance community to make sure that we are at least up to par and if not above par for replacements.
It's on the list.
Jeff, real quick, out of curiosity, if there was to be a break in the water mains, Sylvan and East Sheridan Place, and there's no easement, what
First I
would
called
happen?
Peter.
Yeah, Peter.
I mean, there is,
And when we're having conversations with the community members, the
Yeah.
private property owners.
there is some sort of easement we've used this for 100 years. We have a right. But if that right means I'm going right through somebody's tree, bush, or garage versus going in somebody else's property where maybe that right is less defined, people in Lake Bluff are generally nice, and they will all not have water. So they will be very, motivated to let us fix the leak. But it is an old pipe, and when an old pipe breaks, sometimes it breaks in a few spots, and that's the thing you don't want to have to happen. I think Jacob will be, if a water main break every year, New Year's Eve, or is it Christmas Eve? It's one or the other. Yeah.
Super Bowl.
Or Friday at 5 PM, I mean.
Usually, his resignation letter is pretty close at hand, but.
But hypothetically, and maybe this is for you to chime in on, what would be the liability there? And would the village be subject to lawsuit from the private property owners?
Anybody can sue.
Right.
Right? But we have governmental immunity as long as we are not being willful and wanton. And as long as we don't leave it in a condition that's like, again, doing something really, really above negligence. But otherwise, we have immunity. There are pipes. We have the ability to manage them. And as long as we do it reasonably, there's really no risk of liability.
The neighborhood knows we're looking at this. We've been talking to them, and they're expecting a meeting soon to lay out these alternatives.
Thanks.
That's it. If there's any other questions?
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that would conclude the report.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Last item is the trustees' report. Do any trustees wish to make a report tonight?
I have a comment. I'm not sure it's a report, but many of you might have read, this is June 30th, an article in the New York Times about the unique noise problems associated with pickleball. And it's a significant concern where the courts were painted very closely adjacent to some homes over on Green Bay Road. I'm wondering if anybody has looked into the possible violation of the noise ordinance made by these sounds, which this article describes as being somewhat akin to a torture technique. The particular location there being so close to the property lines of people who live there, the availability of another court where there is no adjacent homeowners, may be a proper solution there, but I wonder if that's come to anybody's attention, or anything that we need to do in terms of the noise ordinance.
So we have been somewhat kept in the loop that the neighbors had raised concern with the start of play really early, like 6:30.
Sunrise, yeah, and it's been pushed back to 8.
8, yeah, and I understood that was done and that had helped. And I knew the Park District was exploring there's certain rackets and balls which are not as loud which they were investigating, but also some other like a sound abatement with like a screen that they were investigating. So I know they're working with the neighborhood on that. As far as noise standards, nobody's raised that issue. And if I remember, I have to go back and look at what the Rio, because that's Rio district, and if there's, I don't know if that's L1 standard, or I forget what they were held to. I have to go back and revisit that.
Yeah, well, they may well be, but the homes are not in that district, right? The homes that they're adjacent to, right? So I raise it as a concern because it dawned on me when I was hearing the concern that there may be noise ordinance issues here, having been mitigated by an 8 a.m. start, but not resolved. Further, individuals are investing in their own paddles, so we would have to mandate
What kind of paddles, yeah.
the kinds of paddles. Individuals own the balls, so we'd have to mandate the particular balls, and the screening may or may not resolve the issue. We were involved in the noise ordinance issue when I was on the school board, and we went to a great deal of cost and effort to measure the decibel level and to mitigate it. And it was a significant concern, and that was a consistent, rather than a, tap, tap, tap concern. So mitigation may be the answer, but the placement of those courts right there by homes, even at 8 a.m., as opposed to 5:30, I think it was starting.
Early, yeah.
I think there's a role for the village to play in enforcing our noise ordinance. I'm just,
Yeah, and
I'd like to just point that out.
And I think in the school, and I think this would be true here as well, in addition to any village standard, they'd still be subject to the Illinois Pollution Control Board, which is the state EPA standards for noise, which would be whatever that use is adjacent to residential. I'd have to double check that. Yeah, so.
It reaches 70 decibels. 100 feet away could reach 70 decibel dBAs. And the unique nature of the staccato, not predictable rhythm is particularly difficult. So apparently it's an issue for many other communities. And if there's a way that we could encourage heading off of this concern in our community by putting it by the public safety building, for example, rather than the back doors of neighbors, I'd like to see what our ordinances might
We'll look into it.
encourage.
Got it.
So I'm a little bit confused on that, and I do appreciate your comment because I know this is a real issue in our community, and I pretty much know the families that would be affected by this issue. This would still be the Park District land, correct? And what is our reach to make sure that noise ordinances are respected while being there government literally?
They have to comply with our code
And the state.
and the state.
Okay, that's it. That's the answer.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I think the state's regulations are more rigid than the village's.
Like, the school had to comply with the state and village requirements, even though it was school property where the noise was emanating from, right? It didn't stop at the property line.
There's some things that they don't have to comply with. The school has its own building code, so they don't have to comply with our building code. But you're right, like uses and things that can emanate off the property, definitely we have jurisdiction over.
So I think there's a solution here.
Yep.
And I think if our ordinances might provide a piece of data that ought to be considered, I'd encourage us to do so.
I'll follow up with the Park District on that.
Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. Are there any other trustees' report for tonight? Thank you. I believe we do not have an executive session tonight, right? Okay. So next would be our adjournment. Is there a motion for adjournment
Motion to
tonight?
adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Awesome.